Hi everyone, welcome to Mentally Strong Mums. My name is Elena Bishop, and this one is a little one where we're talking about covert narcissists, right? So I generally haven't dipped my toe into this arena before, into this pool before, because I think sometimes with pop culture and with patterns of behavior, sometimes we're quite quick to judge someone as narcissistic personality disorder. So I kind of want to differentiate what that is, as well as understanding what a covert narcissist is, as well as understanding how to be able to put up boundaries and protect yourself, but most importantly, know that you're not crazy. Sometimes one of the biggest problems when you're dealing with someone with a that's manipulative, that's a covert narcissist. It's like all these really unusual, subtle things that happen. And the point of it all is to question my reality. So then eventually I start to question my reality. And when I work with clients and the further and further it goes on, I then use the analogy, it almost feels like you're in a washing machine. And the washing machine, you don't know what's up, you don't know what's down, you don't know what's happening, and everything is so confused. You don't know if you're Arthur or Martha, right? So, understanding sometimes covert narcissists, these are this kind of little entry level understanding what that actually looks like as opposed to the other end of the spectrum with a full-blown narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, and how that then, in terms of human behavior, we then get conditioned upon. And conditioned is essentially how you feel and how you learn by your environment. So if I'm conditioned by my partner, so I'm free, I'm independent, I'm an open book, and I feel quite confident in my ability. But then over time, every time that I say something, it's wrong or I'm shut down or it's incorrect, I then learn not to go to that person or not to go to my partner to have these conversations. So I keep everything in. So that's being conditioned. So now I lose a part of me and I have to hide different parts of me because the other person essentially isn't safe, right? And so, in the past, I don't know if you know, well, I assume, well, actually, there's an episode in the past, and I've done about sex and intimacy and safety. And when it comes to women, we actually need emotional safety to be able to be open for intimacy and connection and vulnerability. And so sometimes it's very difficult because it feels like this roller coaster over and over and over again. Okay. So this session here, I'm not going to go too much into narcissistic personality disorder. I will have a little dribs and drabs here, but yes. So when we think of a narcissist, sometimes we picture someone who's loud or arrogant and attention seeking. But what if narcissism hides right in plain sight, right? It can almost look like it's quiet and passive, and sometimes it almost looks a bit humble. And that's why I get so confused about what's actually happening, right? So there's a covert narcissist. So you have overt, which is obvious behavior, and then covert, which is under the covers, secret kind of behavior. And so that's when they talk about as well covert control. So covert control in terms of a domestic violence setting, covert control is now because of the covert nature, the undermining, all of this kind of stuff, it's covert. So it's secret. It's not obvious in your face like the overt. It's covert, right? So covert narcissist is the lesser known but equally destructive version of narcissism, right? So I want to first talk about narcissistic personality disorder, and it's according to the DSM-5, and that's generally what practitioners use as a guideline to be able to diagnose people as opposed to just throwing around labels, right? There are a couple of subtle signs to covert narcissism and understanding why they are so hard to spot. A couple of real world examples so at least you can understand. And I'm going to get your head out of that washing machine so you can see things clearly, right? And then when I do that, I'm able to help you with boundaries or protective mechanisms for you. Because sometimes if you're in a relationship that's manipulative, and even if there's covert control, it can be very difficult to leave and to just break up or whatever. So it's understanding how to be able to empower yourself for your own choices about what you want to do as opposed to feeling whatever it is, right? So, obviously, from my perspective, knowledge is power. So, empowering yourself to see things clearly, get out of that washing machine so that you can be mentally strong. And that's why you're listening to these podcasts, right? So, it's almost that feeling sometimes. Have you ever left a conversation where you're left feeling small or guilty, but you can't actually explain why or put your finger on it, right? And it's like wondering why I second guess myself around someone who seems to be nice, but then I end up leaving emotionally drained, right? So we need to be able to understand that the covert narcissist is essentially a little series of covert behaviors. So a covert narcissist doesn't brag, they make you feel guilty for having needs, okay? Feeling emotionally drained after every interaction isn't normal. It's a red flag. Kindness without consistency is a mask. It's not a virtue. So with you, a lot of the time, I want to be nice. I want to be kind. I just want to be a good human, and that's what I want to be. But sometimes covert narcissists, they're only nice if they're manipulative or they want something or they want you to be able to relax so that they can plant a seed for later on, right? It's like when someone always plays the victim to control you, it's not compassion, it's manipulation. It's the exact same sentence where manipulation is that thing where they treat you a certain way, and then your reaction to the disrespect that the way that they've treated you, they're then upset that you've had that reaction and make you feel bad for having that reaction. But you're like, but if you didn't treat me awful or said those awful words, I wouldn't have this reaction. But they're, well, you shouldn't, you're not entitled to that reaction. You know that I had good intentions for it. You're overreacting. How dare you throw that back in my face? And you're like, well, I can't help how I feel because you made me feel. Do you know what I'm saying? So sometimes it can almost feel like that washing machine because you lose your footing, you don't know what your argument is, and sometimes they twist things so much that you completely forget what you're fighting for, and you eventually just throw in the towel and go, all right, I'm sorry. But you don't know what you're saying sorry for, right? So healing starts when believing your own emotional experience again, what it's like for you. So first, getting into narcissistic personality disorder, there's this guy called Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. He's very good. So I've been to a couple of his conferences and I subscribe to all of his stuff. And so his theory in terms of personality disorders is there's this, if you're listening to this as opposed to watching this on YouTube, it's a bit difficult. So let me try and articulate it. Use your words. So just say I was born compared to and there's a line that goes across compared to my current version now. When a person experiences significant trauma, even though your body is at this age, this date here, your brain, because of the trauma, doesn't know what day or year it is. It reverts all the way back here to where the trauma was. So at 8 or 12 or 16. So that even though it's the current year and it's the current date, it's very difficult because when they feel triggered, when they feel paranoid, when they feel like everyone else is against them, it's very difficult because they go all the way back here and revert back to these childhood defenses. And that's why it's very difficult because it's really immature in their responses. And that's to do with trauma and the way the brain's developed. Okay. So the DSM-5 to officially diagnose someone with NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, you need to be able to meet, I think it's about 5 of these 9. So, number 1 is grandiose sense of importance. 2 is a preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love, right? That can be one that fits through the radar sometimes because I chose you because it was a healing relationship. So you're meant to heal me throughout this whole relationship, even though it's been 10 years, right? Number 3, believe they are special and unique in comparison to others. 4, they require a lot of admiration. How was dinner? Did I do this right? Did I do excessive admiration, right? Number 5, they have a bit of a sense of entitlement. 6 is interpersonally exploitive behavior. So they're able to play the game, see life as a chessboard, and being able to exploit others to be able to then have their own gains. They have a lack of empathy. They just are unable to see it from other people's perspective, right? Number 8, they have envy of others or a belief that others are envious of them. They're just jealous of me. Like, no, they're not. But they are. That's why they're mad, because they're just jealous. Okay. Number 9 is arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes, right? So when we that's the diagnostic criteria for narcissistic personality disorder. Okay. So if they come up with at least 5 of those, sometimes that's an avenue that can be have a look down further. But in this one, what we're talking about is covert narcissists, right? So covert narcissists may meet many of these criteria, but their style is subtle, passive, and marked by victimhood or some kind of humility, right? So what is a covert narcissist? So the definition is essentially a covert narcissist still craves admiration and feels superior, but instead of obvious arrogance, they display insecurity, passive aggressiveness, and emotional manipulation, okay, to put you in the washing machine. Often appears when you first meet them as shy or self-sacrificing or even fragile outwardly. So then, especially for the female, women have wombs. We are nurturers. So sometimes we see that and we want to be there for them and nurture them and look after them or make them, right? So studies show that covert narcissists score high on vulnerability, hypersensitivity to criticism. So that's also rejection sensitivity, as well as social withdrawal, right? Unlike overt narcissists, which is your quote unquote typical narcissist, who are openly grandiose, covert, under the radar, hide their self-importance behind a mask of victimhood, right? So they only think about 6.2 of the population have narcissistic personality disorder. But for me, it's about understanding patterns of behavior, emotional immaturity, as well as this trauma response that I was talking about before, to be able to move them to the current day and age. And that's what I have to do as a therapist, and to be able to help them see and call them out on their behavior in a way that's respectful, but also not throwing yourself under the bus as well. Protective, respectful and protective, okay? So signs and symptoms of a covert narcissist. So it's chronic victimhood, constantly feels misunderstood and wronged by others, number 1. 2, passive aggressive, sarcasm, guilt trips, silent treatments, right? There's a difference between stonewalling someone who's purposely giving you the silent treatment and the other who is stonewalling, but because their nervous system is completely shut down and they're unable to talk, right? 3 is extreme sensitivity to criticism. Any feedback is seen as a personal attack, right? Same as rejection sensitivity. So it feels like you're always, always, always having to positively reinforce everything. It's exhausting, right? They have false empathy, pretends to care, but empathy is really surface level and it's often self-serving because they can't actually be there and connect, right? They have a lot of envy and resentment of others. They're secretly jealous but portrays themselves as humble. They can also withhold emotions, emotional withholding. So they purposely withhold affection or attention as a punishment, right? Gaslight, subtle manipulation for you to doubt yourself and your reality. That's when you go in the washing machine. And they also have this self-centered fragility. So any focus on others is threatening to their sense of self, right? So a partner who always seems endlessly like they're hard done by. They always play the victim. If you bring up any concerns, but they never actually take responsibility or accountability or grow and evolve. It's like having the same conversations over again. A parent who might constantly sacrifices, I did this for you, I sacrificed for you, and then reminds you endlessly of how they were a martyr, right? And so you always feel guilty because your parents have done this and done that. And geez, do you know what I mean? It also can be a friend who is subtly competitive and then resents your happiness, but reframes it as worry for you. You know those ones? Yeah. So, why it's so dangerous, right? Because you can stay trapped because they seem nice or wounded or kind. And as that, sometimes your biology as a woman betrays you because you want to be there for them and make them feel okay and nurture them. And only if I, right. They might often mirror your values and then slowly erode your confidence. That's very, very common. Okay. Mirror your values. So then in the beginning, I thought, you were like me because we had all these common things, right? And then they slowly, bit by bit, erode your confidence, right? There's emotional confusion. That's their power because that emotional confusion, the withholding, so all of the kind of stuff, right? When you're a survivor of this or when you're still in this, it can almost feel like I have chronic self-doubt. It can also then lead to complex trauma symptoms. So PTSD is one trauma event, but C complex is two or more, CPSD, because it's over and over and over and over and over again, right? And then I always feel into these guilt and obligation traps. And sometimes I always feel like a burden and inconvenience, and I don't know why. And I'm always guilty but I don't know why I'm doing that, right? So, how to be able to protect yourself. So, a lot of this time it's very, very difficult because I didn't even know that this existed. That's very difficult because it's so covert, it's not obvious, overt. So then it's little things that start to erode and take it away, right? Emotional exhaustion in a relationship is a red flag. Your relationship should be able to be nice and free, and we can talk about things and we can let things go and move forward, right? But if you've emotionally exhausted in a relationship, it means it's one-sided and you're permanently their counselor, or you're their mother, or you're their therapist, or you're their emotional needs. No, right? Understand patterns, notice predictable patterns. Even if you want to write them down somewhere, not so they can find them, that's another thing. If you can write it down somewhere, it makes you feel less because you're able to see these patterns, right? Being able to set firm but kind boundaries and then watch their reactions. So, you know, a compliment sandwich. I know that you're trying to be able to be nice. It actually came across really mean and I hurt my heart. Please don't make me feel bad because I didn't hang out the washing the way that you wanted it to. Whatever that is, right? Please don't. Please don't. Or another boundary is that's not correct. That's not the truth. What do you mean? If you can get black and white factual, that's not the truth. That's not the facts. This is what actually happened. No, it's not. But that's not correct, right? Sometimes even challenging their paranoias or their negative core beliefs or thinking that other people are jealous. I don't know if that's correct. Do you know what I mean? Don't negotiate your worth to gain their approval. And I spoke the other one about putting your emotions in someone else's house. That was last week's episode. Don't put your emotions in other people's houses. You've got to be able to make sure that you're rock solid so that you always have internal validation and you're not always seeking external validation from others. You're getting it from yourself. And with all of this as well, honestly, seek therapy, get counseling, just so it can confirm that you need to get out of the washing machine, right? Someone who loves you won't constantly make you doubt your reality. And a lot of this as well, sometimes when I have someone in here about their partner, it can be really difficult because I know they've had trauma. I know how they've had it rough. Do you know what I mean? So that can be really difficult as well because it can be really awful because you have a womb and it's like you are always making excuses for them in different ways, right? So let me just have a look over here quickly. Yeah, it's really difficult because it's exhausting. It feels like you're constantly fighting, but you don't know what you're fighting for. And so all of this really means that you need to be able to protect yourself in ways where you can notice patterns and what's actually happening and how you can look after yourself so that you're able to then continue and carry on and not think less of yourself because of all of these things that happen, right? So that was just a little one on covert narcissism. I know it was really short. If this resonated with you, obviously you can do things like talk to someone about it. You can even go to ChatGPT and have a conversation with them. But looking at things objectively and how it's influencing you. Does your body change when they come in the room? After an interaction, do you feel bad about yourself and you don't know why? Are you always emotionally exhausted? Does it feel like you're having the same conversations? You need to grow and evolve. And if they're not willing to come with you and they're stagnant, then it's not up to you to be able to fix and heal them. Okay? In a relationship, especially a romantic relationship, it meant to be mutually beneficial where you both come together to support each other. But when one person's always doing that for the other one, and you feel like you're in that washing machine, you don't know if you're Arthur or Martha, if you're up or down, sometimes we need to be able to figure out how to call this behavior out in a safe way that protects you, that's non-confrontational. And next episode, we're going to be talking about, you know what we're going to be talking about that actually goes in line with this? High conflict personalities, high conflict people, right? And sometimes, even though this is covert, this is also underlying that people that are high conflict, ugh, it's exhausting and draining, and it's always this brick wall that I feel. So there's this amazing person called Bill Eddy, and so he's got great books and podcasts as well. So I'm going to be talking about high conflict people in our next episode. All right. Thank you so much for seeing me today. I hope you have a fabulous afternoon, and I will speak with you soon. All right. Bye.